so easy. Let's have 5 lots of 5s, yeah? So if you don't understand what the talk is about today, you can ask at the end. Then what's going to happen is they're going to turn the lights off, and we're going to do something called zikr. Why do we turn the lights off and do zikr when you got your hand up? MashaAllah. So we can concentrate on the zikr and think about Allah, yeah? And then you can ask Allah, Allah, give me good brain so I can read, recite Quran. Young man, come on, I'm talking to you, young man. You can't hide. Yeah, so listen. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Don't turn around. I'm talking to you, yeah? Otherwise, I'll have to put your name on the board. And then you get to come back after schooling. I have to stay extra long today and get detention. Okay, so I'm going to call brother Ridwan. Who's Ridwan? Can you come up? Please, he's going to do talawat for us. So listen very attentively. MashaAllah, come this way. That's a special chair. Inshallah, one day you will sit on that as well. There you go, just recite. And then we're going to have a naat, inshallah, and then the majlis will begin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالحزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا.
Did you not want to do a naat as well? Do you know any naats? Anyone want to recite naat? Young man at the back, I believe you. Yeah? Yeah, come on. Anyone? Any naat? Do you know any? We don't got any naat? One's in here. The Gulfan. Is he? Okay, inshallah. So we're going to begin the majlis now. Just make sure, please, that your phones are turned off. Okay, if you've got a mobile phone, make sure they are turned off. You're here for none other than the pleasure of Allah. Yeah, young boys, you're here for none other than the pleasure. You want to learn things that Allah likes you to do. So if you're going to be disturbing and messing about, yeah, and not paying attention, like touching each other, messing about and disturbing the speaker, yeah, it goes against the etiquettes of this majlis. It goes for us as well. Sometimes we get tired, but we need to focus, remind ourselves that this is important. Your school week is finished now. I know you're tired, you've had a long day, but inshallah, Allah puts more barakat. Inshallah, you'll all have a nice, good night's sleep tonight. Yeah, when you sleep, inshallah, you'll have a nice, good sleep. Yeah, because you've given some of your time for Allah's pleasure, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you in this world and in the hereafter.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين Amma ba'd. Around 1400 years ago, on the 26th of Safar, the most treacherous plan in the history of humanity was orchestrated. This was by a group of evil men who belonged to the tribe of Quraysh. And this plan was no other but to assassinate the most blessed person to ever step foot on this earth, and that is no other than our blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now you're probably thinking, why? Why would someone want to have such a plan like this? And how can someone even think to make a plan like this? It had come to a point where the Quraysh, the people of Makkah, at the time of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had exercised all their effort to prevent Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam from teaching Islam, for propagating the message of the deen, of the truth, of the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they were coming to a very extreme measures now, very desperate measures. And also, at this particular time, the Quraysh, the non-Muslims, the idol worshippers, were becoming more and more hostile towards the Sahaba, the people who had become Muslim at the time. So it was becoming more difficult, and for the Muslims and the Quraysh were getting more desperate at the same time, that whatever they were doing, the torture, the boycott, whatever was happening, it wasn't stopping these Muslims from practicing Islam. And also for the Muslims, it was getting more and more difficult because they were trying to give them more torture, put in a worse situation and worse situation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened a way for the Muslims. And this was through the pledge of the people of Medina. So they took a promise with Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the tribes of Aus and Khazraj that were not Muslims, but they said that they will follow Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they will take them as their leader. So this was known as a pledge, where they made a promise to them that they're not going to go back on this. So obviously the Quraysh, they were aware of this and they heard about this pledge. And as soon as the pledge was made, some of the Muslims slowly started to go. So the people in Makkah began to realize that the people are decreasing. So first they only speculated that this pledge actually happened, but when they realized that the people were leaving, then they completely believed, and now they had no doubt that Rasulullah had made a pledge and that the Muslims were going. So for their own personal reasons, for wealth or for whatever reasons, the economy was going to be affected, people were going, and also they didn't want this the deen or this thing to go out of Makkah. They wanted to deal with it themselves. And obviously they didn't want Rasulullah to propagate the deen and become a leader, because they knew deep down that Rasulullah had this quality. Even in the time of Makkah, there was a point where they offered Rasulullah everything, where they just said, don't propagate this deen, don't propagate the oneness of Allah. And they refused. They said they don't want anything, because that is why they were sent, that is why they were the Rasul of Allah to propagate this message. So they knew the capabilities and the abilities that Rasulullah had. So for that reason, they decided now that it's come to a time where they're going to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ. Na'uzubillah. And what had happened is, so a lot of the Muslims had left, and now only the Prophet ﷺ was left, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and a couple of other Sahabas. So they're waiting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them permission to leave. They're waiting for the permission to leave. So what had happened is, how did the Quraysh plan this now? How did they plan this assassination? Is what they did, a very cunning plan, a very sly plan, is because at that time everything was by its tribe. How we know we have castes, that this person this caste, that from this caste. They have tribes, that this person this tribe and that tribe. So obviously if one tribe had tried to harm Rasulullah, then the blame would have all gone into that tribe. So what they did was, said one person from each tribe will try to harm Rasulullah, so the blame is across everyone in Makkah. So they went on a certain night, but obviously, they keep forgetting, and the stubbornness, they know who Rasulullah is, but they don't want to accept that this is the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the person who is most loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah mentioned in the Quran, the nearest meaning, that the non-believers plan, Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. So of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Jibreel alayhi salam revealed this plan to his blessed Prophet that this is what they're going to do. And so then they made the plan that Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu was going to sleep in the bed in replacement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet was going to be in a different location, and the next day they were going to travel to Medina. So obviously this is what happened. They came, they were shocked, and now Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had left for Medina now. And now this is such a significant journey that many of us just know this journey as, okay, Rasul migrated from one place to another. But so many things happened in this journey that have got so many life lessons for us. It's just a matter of contemplating, and sitting with those who understand what the lessons are and those who really understand the meaning of Sirah. Because unfortunately, Sirah has become like some sort of drama, or for us it's become like some sort of entertainment that we just hear it, we read it, we think, oh mashallah, that was amazing. But the ultimate reason of that, the Sirah, is for us to derive lessons, for us to be able to follow Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Sunnah, to see practically how the Sunnah should be performed. And it's a great blessing that we have this Sirah. So now the journey has started, and Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Hazrat Abu Bakr have now left. So the Quraysh have found out that obviously Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is not here, Hazrat Abu Bakr is not here, and so they've sent a search party out. So they've had to be very careful as to how they travel. So what did they do? They went 5 miles south from Makkah, and on their way came a cave. And this cave was quite high up. So, and what you're going to see now is, the month of Rabiul Awwal is also coming up. Now we're in the month of Safar, and next will be the month of Rabiul Awwal. And what we will see now is, this month we associate to loving Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And actually from the migration, a person can really understand how to love Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is through Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So if you want to learn how to love Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then you need to observe Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who is the most closest to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this incident will make you understand why. Why we need to love Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam the way Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu loved Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So now they've seen this cave, and what's happened is, it's quite high up, and they've been walking for 5 miles. Imagine walking for 5 miles. We walk for 10-15 minutes, our legs get tired, we call an Uber, we get a bus, ring our mum and dad, can you pick me up, I'm tired, But this is in the scorching heat, and not just that, but they left at 12 at noon, and this in the heat of Makkah, the heat of the desert. It's the worst kind of heat, humid heat. So they were walking in this heat. So it come to a point where they were quite tired, and Hazrat Abu Bakr, they had noticed this. So what did they do? They put Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam on their back, and they climbed up the mountain to go into the cave. And they were going into this cave for security, because they knew now that the Makkans were coming to find them. They knew that the search party was sent out to find Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Hazrat Abu Bakr, the 2 companions. So they carried them on their shoulders up the mountain to the cave. Once they got to the cave, they requested that Rasul would wait outside, and off their clothes they tore some cloth off, and they went in the cave and they started cleaning the cave. And then they made sure they filled any gap in the cave so that snakes couldn't come through. So they filled all the gaps they could, then they went out, then when they seen another gap, they'd request Rasul to stop, they would clean it, until they felt that now this cave is clean enough for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But there was one area which couldn't be clean. Sorry, there was one area where they didn't have enough cloth to put in there. So they put their foot in there. So everywhere else where snakes could come through, it was all blocked. But there's one particular hole, they couldn't put it there, so they put their foot there. And as soon as they came in, Rasul Sallallahu rest their head on their lap. Imagine how blessed that is. That Rasul Sallallahu is going to rest on your lap. Their blessed head. And Rasul Sallallahu, they fell asleep, they were tired. So Hazrat Abu Bakr was sat there in that same position, protecting, making sure that nothing could happen to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And suddenly a snake bit the foot of Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu from one hole. And such a severe bite. Hazrat Abu Bakr did not make an inch of a noise because Rasul had fallen asleep. They didn't want to disturb the Prophet. That's how much love they had. In extreme pain, they didn't make a single noise. Just so Rasul wouldn't be affected. Their sleep wouldn't be affected. But what happened out of natural, feelings, because the pain was so unbearable that the tears started to come out slowly. And one of the tears went on to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And because of that, Rasulullah woke up. And they realized that the situation that Hazrat Abu Bakr had been poisoned by a snake. So what did Rasulullah do with their blessed saliva? They put it where the place was where they'd been bit, and it was as though there was no pain. But just look at that love that Abu Bakr had done. They went through some extreme pain just so Rasulullah could rest peacefully. And then, this is such a beautiful experience that Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that in the time of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was a caliph, when in the time of his rule, when he was ruling over the Muslims, that some of the Sahaba were discussing that that Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, he had this quality, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, like comparing the Sahabas, like who had better qualities. And they happened to hear this, and they stopped and they sat down, and they were informed about this, is that the Sahaba were discussing this. And Hazrat Umar heard this, and what did they say? What did they remark? They said, by Allah, one night of Abu Bakr is better than all the lives of Umar's family, and one day of Abu Bakr is better than all the life of Umar's family, and that day which is better than the life of Umar's family is the day when the Messenger of Allah went to the cave with Abu Bakr. That's how blessed that event was. The Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu even remembered that event as such a special event, and because of that event, he held Hazrat Abu Bakr above him in ranks. That is how blessed that event is. And this is the nature of true companionship. And this is why the only people who can truly be your friends, we have so many friends. We think people at school are our friends. We think people in college are our friends. The people who meet at football are our friends. Yes, they are friends. They're friends to socialize. But the true and the real friends are the friends of Allah. And this is Hazrat Abu Bakr, who is a friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And only people like Hazrat Abu Bakr can be your friend. And these are today like the awliya Allah. And if you see why, let's just go back to why. Why would we say that these people are the true friends? Because look at what Hazrat Abu Bakr went through for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number one, he carried the Prophet on his back in the scorching heat. Imagine who would do that for you out of your friends. Put it on your hand and list, who would do that for me? They cleaned out a cave to protect them from snakes. Which friend of yours would risk their life to protect you from snakes? And they went through unbearable pain just so no one or nothing could touch Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And even when they were walking to the cave, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu would walk in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then they would walk behind Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then they would walk in front of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then they would walk behind. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them, Oh Bakr, what's happened to you? What's happened to you? Sometimes you walk in front of me. Sometimes you walk behind me. Hazrat Abu Bakr then replied, O Messenger of Allah, when I think about the people who are searching for you, I walk in front of you. When I think about those who are lying behind you, I start walking behind you. And the Holy Prophet said, O Abu Bakr, do you prefer yourself over me to face any incident that may occur? And what did Abu Bakr then reply? By the one who has sent you with the truth, it is a fact. That they were ready to sacrifice their whole life for Rasul. Every second, every minute, they were ready to sacrifice for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is what you call true companionship. And that is what you call the true love of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this month we talk about the month coming Rabiul Awwal, that it's about Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is how you express your love. Is that you express it through your actions, not just through your words. What would they do? They were practically showing their love. Out of his immense love of the Prophet ﷺ, they were be able to withstand such severe pain. So how can we possess this love? We can also have this love in our heart. And how can we express this love for Rasul ﷺ? It can be by wearing the blessed sunnah in the public. Regardless of what people think, we wear the sunnah. Expressing good character to people who may have harmed you, who may have been bad to you, who may, when you see, you feel unease, you feel discomfort, you may have a grudge with them. It's very difficult for you at that time to be good to them. It's causing you discomfort, it's causing you pain. But what would be the sunnah at that time? Is to be good to those who are bad to you. To follow the sunnah in your characteristics. You know, how long are we going to live on this world for that you're going to keep grudges? When you're in that difficult situation and you think, I don't want to be in front of this person, you serve that person. You do the opposite of what your nafs and your desires are telling you to do. You humble yourself. This is the character of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, the incident which we heard where a woman was leaving the city of Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ noticed this woman, old lady, and the Prophet asked her, why are you leaving? Why are you leaving the city? And well, there's such a man named Muhammad, and he's causing a problem here, and you know, he's like this, he's like that, he's like this. And Rasulullah was listening to her, and they got to where Rasulullah was going to leave her, and she turned around and said to Rasulullah that, you know, oh blessed young man, who are you? You've accompanied me all this way, you've helped me, you've eased my pain, who are you? And he goes, I am the man who you're talking about, Rasulullah. And at that moment, that woman took shahada. The same woman who was leaving because of the Prophet ﷺ, when she seen the true characteristics of them, all that went. And this is the same with you. That when people will be bad to you, when they have grudges, when you show the sunnah, it's not necessarily you, but because it's the sunnah, it's beautiful, and people cannot resist the beauty of the sunnah. Because it's the character of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or no matter how bad shaitan is tempting you to the environment, at school, at college, at university, to look at na-mahram, to get involved in wrong things and interact with them wrongly, at work, to deceive people, to earn money wrongly, you know, or take drugs for pleasure that is temporary. If we had true love like Abu Bakr radiallahu an, we would withstand the difficulty and walk away and condemn these actions. When you've got that temptation in your heart and it's burning, you think, yeah, I want to do this, and all the people around you thinking, I want to do this, it's at that time you show the love like Abu Bakr and show the love of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now if we move on, so this was one incident that took place. So now, you know, another miracle took place at this time. So then the disbelievers came and they seen the cave. And they went to the cave, and just how brothers here sat in front like this close, the disbelievers had come this close to the cave. But Allah SWT protected them in such a way where it was as though no one was in that cave. Allah Ta'ala caved a spider's web through there, and they put like a bird's nest, so it seemed as though no one had been in this cave for a long time. Yet they were so close to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr, but because Allah Ta'ala had made this situation like this where they weren't going to be harmed, so that the people thought that there was nobody here, and the search party that went there, they had went. And such a beautiful conversation took place where as Abu Bakr began to get tense that people are coming very close. Obviously they were in fear of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They didn't want any harm to come to them. And then Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam had seen that Abu Bakr had got quite tense and said to the nearest meaning that you don't need to worry. Where there's one friend, another friend, why are you to worry when the third friend with us is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That Hazrat Abu Bakr was fearing for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam out of his love for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very calm and relaxed because his love and his reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his love for his beloved, and how much trust and yaqeen he had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they would protect him at that time. So now moving on, so they went past this area, and during the migration it come to a point where they seen another camp, and Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr had got quite hungry and become quite thirsty. And there was a woman there, and she had like, you know, you could say like, you know, we have like cloth out to serve food and etc. So travelers would pass by and she would serve food, and she would go by the Ma'bad, mother of Ma'bad, Ma'bad. And so the Rasul had seen her, she'd seen Rasul and she'd offered that, you know, come to my place and take some rest and take some food. But in reality she didn't really have anything. So she didn't have much at all. So when they'd got there, in that time, the area which they'd got to, there was a drought. So the animals weren't really giving any milk. They were quite weak. There wasn't much there. And the actual herd of animals, they'd gone. So she only had one goat there. So she said, look, there's not much there, to the nearest meaning. But she offered, you know, this goat, whatever it could give, it will give. And what did Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said, you know, they asked for permission to go near the goat and, you know, to try to take the milk out. So she gave permission. And as soon as Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam went and touched the udders of the goat, milk just started flowing like a stream. Such a blessed miracle, that the blessed hands of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam touched that and it's flown like a stream. And this woman, and now we've got to look at what can we learn from that incident? What was so special about that incident? One is, for us, one blessing is that through this woman, in the Sirah it's mentioned that she actually got to describe Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That she actually wrote a full description, because when this incident occurred, obviously Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam left, but so much milk came out that there was even sufficient for her and her family. So when the husband had come back and asked, we're in the season of drought, how has all this milk come? And she goes, such a man came, and it's mentioned, it's quite a long description. If anyone reads the Sirah, they'll see. And she described in such length the beauty of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So to this instance, that's one blessing we got. But in reality, a much more greater blessing is that what we need to realize here is that there's an element in there for us that teaches us that we can give dawah regardless of our situation. That we can help the message of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam regardless of our situation. And how is this? You're probably thinking, how is this possible? That the real lovers of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam want to accommodate and help Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in whatever way they can. And what we see from this woman, all she did was have the right intention. All she did was have the right intention. She didn't really have anything to offer Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but all she did have was the right intention. And with that right intention, what happened? Her home became blessed. And this is for us to tell us that you might not have much skills, you might not even be able to speak or do bayan. This is not the only form of dawah. This is not the only form of propagating the deen. Whatever you can do, even if you can be in the masjid with someone who's propagating the deen, this is sufficient as dawah. And you will see the blessings pour. Like in this woman's situation, she had nothing to offer. But because she had the right intention, and similarly, if yourselves have the right intention, I have the right intention, that Allah Ta'ala will open the way for you to give dawah. And just by accommodating, or even if it's just to khidmat, what if you just help Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is also a form of dawah. Feeding people, helping people in different other ways. It doesn't always have to be by speech. We always have this, notion of a dawah carrier that, he gives bayan and he's out there, It doesn't have to be like this. Opening the door for an elderly person is dawah. Smiling to someone who's upset is dawah. Helping someone who's poor is dawah. This is the way you can propagate the deen, not just through our words. And that was showing us a fine example for ourselves. That if we feel that, we can't talk, we're weak, even if you can't even help someone with your hands, be present with those who are giving dawah. And see that blessings will come into your life, like the blessings came to this woman. And this is why I wanted to emphasize this importance of the seerah. That look, just to this small, but it's a significant incident, but look at just 2 lessons, but how deep, and if we contemplate about these lessons over and over again, how they can keep on benefiting us. And this is just to show us how important it is to always go back to the seerah, and not just to read it like a normal book, like a novel, but to read it as though you're in the seerah, to read it as though this is practical life advice for you. And when you see it like this, you will see how the seerah will begin to change your life. You'll see how it will begin to take effect in your day-to-day life. Like we see in these different lessons, the more you begin to read and the more you begin to reflect, the more Rasul Sallallahu will become alive in your life. The Sunnah will become alive. But it's our job, we have to do it. We have to go with that thought. And even the kuffar, even they take lessons from the seerah. The disbelievers. We have iman and we don't take it. Even the kuffar take lessons. And one example I can give you is that in the USA around about 1935, in the main Supreme Court, there was a document written on a stone. And it said that the best lawgiver is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This in the Supreme Court. That they had it written on a stone. This is 1935. That the best lawgiver is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this is disbelievers saying it. And they don't have iman. So what is our excuse? Why are we not running to the Sunnah and the Sharia? This is not a normal court. This is above all courts. Where normal people can't say. You could say the biggest judges in that time of all America were mentioning Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So why are we not noticing the status of our blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Why are we giving preference to other things except the Sunnah? Where in reality we should be giving preference to Sunnah and then everything else should come afterwards. Now these are a couple of small lessons which I just wanted to emphasize, but the real lesson and the main lesson, if you haven't taken anything, is this lesson which I'm going to address with you now. is that maybe, we're thinking, right, from the migration, what can we learn? From the lesson as a whole, from the migration as a whole, is that Rasulullah went from one place where there was evil and they couldn't practice Islam, and they went to a place where they could practice. Naturally, this would be the simple thing to think, and our mind would think that. But let's bring that thought in today's reality, that where in the world can you go today where you could say it's a perfect country, or it's got the perfect Sharia? The way society is going, it's very hard. And even if you were to go there and the environment was perfect, if your desires are still with shaitan and you've sold them to shaitan, then when you're on your own, you're still going to do them evil acts. So the question is, if that's not my migration, then what is our migration? What is our pledge? Like the people of Medina made a pledge to Rasulullah. So what is our pledge? And our pledge and our migration that we need to do today, and the real migration, is that from sinfulness to piety. From the life of heedlessness, from the life of sin, we migrate the life of piety, of righteousness. The life like Rasulullah and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. That we leave the sinful city, the sinful world, and we enter into the pious, the city of the pious, and the city and the world of the pious. This is our real migration. And if we look, like we mentioned, that the enemies, they were trying to kill the Prophet ﷺ. The entire city was on a manhunt. They were on a manhunt for Rasulullah ﷺ. So they were trying to find them. And these were the enemies of Rasulullah ﷺ. Likewise, we have an enemy, an open enemy. And similarly, like the people of the Quraysh, what they were trying to Rasulullah ﷺ, that there's one enemy particularly that is trying to do this to us. And you probably already know. This is no other than the shaitan, the devil. He is our open enemy, and he is trying to destroy us. And what did they try to do? What was their you could say, their strength or their plan of action? That they tried to surround Rasulullah, tried to find the Muslims in their weakest state and then exploit them. So then they could launch their attack successfully. And what does shaitan do? Shaitan uses the same tactic like the Quraysh did. And in fact, one thing I didn't mention is when the Quraysh were planning to do this act, this horrendous act to harm Rasulullah, the devil, the shaitan, was actually disguised as an old man in that meeting. He was actually present in that meeting. That's how important of a meeting it was for him. But for us, what meeting does he sit in? And what are they trying to do? Him and his little crew and his little shaitans. What are they trying to do to us? That they're trying to kill us spiritually. They were trying to obviously harm us physically, but for us, what shaitan is trying to do is to kill us spiritually, is to kill our ruh, our soul. And a spiritual death is the worst kind of death. There is no death like a spiritual death. That Imam Hussein radiallahu anhu, when he was left alone in Karbala, when all the male members of the Ahlul Bayt, may Allah bless them all, had been shaheed because they were all fighting, and Imam Hussein then was left alone, that his sister, the female members, were still alive, and she could see Imam Hussein radiallahu anhu, that they were the only person. And the blessed sister, may Allah bless them, they began to get upset. And Imam Hussein had seen this incident, that they could see what was going on. So what did they say to comfort her? What did they say to get rid of that pain and that distress? They said to the Muslim that, "Oh sister, about the physical death, let me say to you, not even the inhabitants of heaven are safe from death." Jibreel alayhi salam, when the Horn of Allah Ta'ala will mention, the angels will die. Mikael alayhi salam will die. Israel alayhi salam will die. Even the inhabitants of heaven are not safe from death. The real death is the spiritual death. The death which Yazid is dying now. They have killed their souls, their iman. This is the real death. This is what Imam Hussein then told his blessed sister. That don't worry about my physical death, because the soul is still alive. Allah can give you millions of bodies. Allah can give you millions of bodies, but He will never give you another soul. One and only soul you'll ever have. Nowhere in the Quran is mentioned or in the Hadith that you'd get another soul or Allah will give another spirit. You know, in Jannat and Jahannam, people will keep on getting bodies and bodies and bodies. In Jannat they'll get beautiful bodies. It will change however you want to dress your body, however you want to change your appearance. It will keep on changing over and over again. In Jahannam, when they go through the torture, the body will keep changing over and over again. Allah Ta'ala will give you millions of bodies, but you only have one soul. You'll never get a soul. And this is why the devil wants us to enjoy the pleasures of the flesh, but does not want you to live spiritually and enjoy the pleasures of the soul. Because he knows its value. And that is why spiritual death is the worst death. You know, this life is not that precious, but we care so much about it and we forget about the ruh. You know, the best example I can give you is like this ruh, this soul, is the real jewel. And it's in a box. And we're just caring about the box and not actually what the jewel is. And it's like a thief comes to you now and he goes, give me the jewel. You give him the jewel and he said, but you can't have the box. That's mine. That's mine. That's what we're doing when shaitan comes. We're saying, have our soul, but we're keeping the body. He's happy with that. That is what he wants. But the real jewel is our soul. And the problem is we've become confused. With everything that's going on inside, we've become confused. We've mixed the both together. Some of us don't even know what is real life. What are we actually living for? What is the reality of this life? Some of us think that taking care of our mind, you know, building our intelligence, our career, working on the mind, that's the purpose of life. Some of us think that our body, you know, to have an amazing body, to be fit, to be healthy, to be strong, that's the purpose of life. But the reality is, the purpose of life is to purify this soul. That is the reality. And you know what the value of this body is, that we care so much about this flesh, you know, that we try to please and try to please others with it, that we commit zina, fornication, adultery and all of the different acts, haram, harming people, just to, you know, to earn so many materialistic gains. You know what the reality of this body is? When you go to a graveyard, or if you ever washed a body, at the time of death is when you realize the reality of this body. Because what happens to the body is that at the time of death, when the spirit is being released, the body begins to decay. The body begins to become old. The body begins to smell. To such a smell the body has that even dogs don't want to go near it. And that's the body that we give value to in this life. That when the soul leaves and transcends to the hereafter, this is what becomes that in a number of days it's completely crushed and gone and you don't even notice it. And this same body is that we're giving preference to this body. So the reality is the soul. So what we need to realize that we are fighters of our nafs and shaitan. And what we should remember is that the enemy is shaitan. And we need to become aware of this enemy. He is the one he's the thief trying to take this jewel away from us. He's a thief trying to take this jewel away from us. And shaitan is your number one enemy. But the nafs can become your friend. The nafs can become your friend. And it can become such a friend of yours that it can even travel with you to Jannat. How can the nafs become your friend? How can this nafs help you? And this is through purifying the nafs, through cleansing the nafs. So when a person begins to purify and cleanse that nafs, that is when it becomes like a friend to you. And instead of taking you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it begins to take you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reality is, the only way that happens is when you find a true teacher, a true murshid, a true sheikh who can show you how to do that in accordance to Quran and Sunnah. And if a person doesn't find this true sheikh and a true murshid, then what's going to become your sheikh is Jahannam. What is going to become your teacher is Jahannam. Why? Because as a Muslim, it's our belief that all Muslims with Iman will enter Jannat. But they have to be purified before they get there. And the purification either takes place in this world And if it doesn't take place in this world, then it will take place in your grave. If it doesn't take place in your grave, then it will take place in the day of judgment. And if it doesn't take place there, then it will take place in Jahannam. And that purification and that shirk is the most difficult shirk. And that teacher is the one who will do the most extreme way of purifying you. Where here your teacher might give you a bit of dhikr to do, a few things to sacrifice, a few actions to sacrifice. You know, what for? 60 years, 60 to 90 years is the average lifespan. So for 60 to 90 years, you have to sacrifice a little bit of time, go through a little bit of hardship, recite some dhikr. Is that difficult? Or being in the fire of hell continuously, and that fire is burning and burning and burning and burning. And what is mentioned about this fire? That its fuel is men and stone. That the fuel of that fire is the body of man. That when the man goes in that fire, it'll keep on fueling it more. Like if you put oil on a fire and a bonfire, it increases. So when that body's burning, the fire is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Ask yourself, is that the purification you want to go through? At least here we know how we're going to live an average of 60, 90, 100 years, say for example. But the only time you're going to come out of Jahannam is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordains you to come out of Jahannam. And there is no guarantee of that time. Nobody can tell you that time. Not a single person can tell you that time. So the reality is, what do we want to do? Do you want to go through a little bit of sacrifice for greater success? Or do you want to have a temporary pleasure for a long term of distress and hardship and pain? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to start this migration to His closeness and give us success in this life and the hereafter. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah, you heard the nasiyah, the advice. So if you don't, or you feel that hellfire is not a place that we want to go to, and I believe that's everyone here, then we can do something about it, and that is called the course of self-purification, known as Tareeqah Muhammadiyah. Purification, for the youngsters who don't understand, it means cleaning yourself. Yeah, when you have a bath or a shower, you clean your body. But the purification of the soul is when you clean your ruh from the bad sins that we do. So 10 to 15 minutes, inshallah, a brother will sit where the clock is and after the Isha prayer, and we'll go through the methodology and explain to you how you can purify yourself. So now inshallah we're going to begin the zikr. I would like to ask the brothers if you can all stand up just to get your blood flowing into your legs, stretch your legs. Okay, so inshallah just a minute or so. So while the Ustaad is going to do the zikr, remember this, boys and our elders, make sure that you stay with the teacher, with the person reciting the zikr. It is a loud zikr. Yes, so you're expected to do it loud as they are doing it as well. And the lights are going to be turned off. And now if anyone would like to sit down and come forward a little bit as well, just come forward. There's quite a few gaps. Just have 3 keys in your head, in your minds, that Allah is with me, He is hearing me, and He is listening to me. He's seeing me. So He is with me, He is hearing me, and He is seeing me. Just get these 3 keys in your mind, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل حول من الأهوال مقتحم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل حول من الأحوال مقتحم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله 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 لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا مقصود إلا الله لا مقصود إلا الله لا مقصود إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا محبوب إلا الله لا محبوب إلا الله لا محبوب إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا لا إله إلا الله لا مطلوب إلا الله لا مطلوب إلا الله لا مطلوب إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا مسجود إلا الله لا مسجود إلا الله لا مسجود إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله 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 إلا illallah, 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 illallah. Illallah, 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 Allah, 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 Allahu, 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 Yahu, 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 Allahu, 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 la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, ma fi qalbi ghayrullah. Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, ma fi qalbi ghayrullah. Nure Muhammad sallallah, Nure Muhammad sallallah, Nure Muhammad sallallah, Nure Muhammad sallallah. Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, ma fi qalbi ghayrullah. Nure Muhammad sallallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. अव्वल आखिर है अल्लाह, ज़ाहिर बातिन है अल्लाह, अव्वल आखिर है अल्लाह, ज़ाहिर बातिन है अल्लाह, अव्वल आखिर है अल्लाह, ज़ाहिर बातिन है अल्लाह, हाफिज़ व नासिर है अल्लाह, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, हाफिज़ व नासिर है अल्लाह, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, अव्वल आखिर है अल्लाह, ज़ाहिर बातिन है अल्लाह, हाफिज़ व नासिर है अल्लाह, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम। हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर, निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर, निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर, निअमल मौला व निअमन नसीर। रब्बि ग़फ़िर वरहम व अंता ख़ैरुर राहिमीन, 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 या अरहमर 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 राहिमीन, रब्बि ग़फ़िर वरहम व अंता ख़ैरुर राहिमीन, रब्बि ग़फ़िर वरहम व अंता ख़ैरुर राहिमीन। ला इलाहा इल्ला अंत सुब्हानक इन्नी कुन्तु मिनज़्ज़ालिमीन, ला इलाहा इल्ला अंत सुब्हानक इन्नी कुन्तु मिनज़्ज़ालिमीन, ला سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين إني كنت من الظالمين إني كنت من الظالمين إني كنت من الظالمين صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله على محمد 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 صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. سبحان الله 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 والحمد لله 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 ولا إله إلا الله ولا إله إلا الله ولا إله إلا الله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر والله أكبر والله أكبر والله أكبر الله 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 أكبر ولله الحمد. أستغفر الله أستغفر الله أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا رب لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. يا رب لك الشكر كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, Ya Malik al-Akhir. We are sat here tonight, Ya Rabbil Alamin, for your pleasure, for your sake, to do your remembrance and to remember the beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and to remember the hijrah that Rasulullah took, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and what ibrah we can take into Allah. Ya Rabbil Alameen, Ya Akram al-Akrameen. Ya Allah, help us do the hijrat from sinfulness to piety, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help us to do the hijrat from ghafla to heedfulness, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help us to migrate from the land of sinfulness to land of piety, to the land of unawareness to land of full of conscious of you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help us to do the migration from land of impurity to land of purity, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, decorate our hearts, our minds, our bodies with the love and itaat of you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. With the love and itaat of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, we are your sinful servants, Ya Rabbil Alameen, full of sins from head to toe, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Please, by your grace and your mercy, by the barakah of this gathering, Ya Rabbil Alameen, by the barakah of the blessed people in this gathering, whichever hand you like, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you that you forgive us for all of our sins, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You enable us all to die with Iman, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help us to prepare for our death, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help us to make our grave a garden of bliss and not a pit full of fire, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, Malikud Akhirah, for all our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers who have passed away, Ya Rabbil Alameen, please forgive them for all of their sins, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, if they're suffering their grave, Ya Rabbil Alameen, please remove the suffering from the grave, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Elevate their state and rank in Jannah, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help us to become the wasila and the means through which they also find enlightenment in their grave, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, for those brothers and sisters who are ill, who are bedridden, who have got COVID or whatever disease or whatever illness, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, you are the Shafi'i, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You do shifa kamil to all of those brothers and sisters, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Rid of the spiritual diseases, rid of the physical disease, illnesses, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Only you are the cure, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You the one who grants cure, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, for those brothers and sisters who are in prashan, who are in distress, who are in anxiety and problems, who have financial problems, marital problems, any other addiction, any other problem that they're in, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You are salam, you are anta salam, wa minka salam, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Put them, remove the difficulty and put them in peace, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Set at ease the task, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help them to find solutions which they think they can never find a solution, Ya Rabbil Alameen. But let them realize that you are the opener of all doors, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You open doors through which we thought there was no doors even existing, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, Ya Malik al-Akhirah. Help us to become those servants that you are pleased with, Ya Rabbil Alameen. To do those deeds that you are pleased with, Ya Rabbil Alameen. To do those amals that you are pleased with, Ya Rabbil Alameen. To follow the footsteps of your beloved Messenger, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Malik al-Akhirah. Bless our teacher, Shahmad al-Bagh, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Help them, bless them and give them a long life, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Enlighten them more, even more so, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, give them good health and good faith, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Enable them and envelope them, Ya Rabbil Alameen, in your mercy and your protection, Ya Rabbil Alameen, from every single dimension, every single way, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Bring them back safely to us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. We're not deserving of them, Ya Rabbil Alameen, but please, Ya Rabbil Alameen, help us to be with them in this life as well as Akhirah. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Malik al-Akhirah, for all our brothers and sisters who are watching, our brothers who are participating, whatever good nekhalat and good thought and good intention and good requests they have, Ya Rabbil Alameen, halal requests, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Please grant them all the goodness and all the goodness of this and the goodness of Akhir, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Count the barakah and blessing the rizq, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, enable our children to be the coolness of our eyes, Rabbil Alameen, and make them those people, those means through which they remember us when we passed away from this world as well, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqihi Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ameen bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Jazakumullahu khairan jazaa.
Welcome lovers from distant lands. Let us contemplate upon the beloved one. Sit and send salutations on the best of mankind, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Celebrate and join us in Bolton, England, on our 3-day spiritual retreat. A Heavenly Muhammadan Covenant. We will unveil the methodology of seeing the beloved Prophet, peace be upon him, in the state of wakefulness and guiding you on a practical lifestyle to live according to his way, taking place on Friday, 15th October at 6 p.m. BST. Register now and book your seats to lift the veil to draw closer to the most beautiful one.
लाखों दरूद और लाखों सलाम लाखों दरूद और लाखों सलाम जिन्नों मलाइक तेरे गुलाम जिन्नों मलाइक तेरे गुलाम लाखों दरूद और लाखों सलाम इतना करम तो फरमाइए इतना करम तो फरमाइए रोज़े पे सबको बुलवाइए हाजिर यहाँ है जितने गुलाम लाखों दरूद और लाखों सलाम I know I'm waiting for something to happen to me. But this waiting comes with trials and challenges. Nothing in life is free. My Lord, show me right.